Welcome to this second episode of When Safeguarding Fails, the Lizzie Gladwell Crisis. I'm Jeremy Gladwell, Lizzie's dad. In episode 1, I recounted how Lizzie was taken from outside her home by her boyfriend's mother, Coral, in a secretive and heartless plot, one day after Lizzie turned 18. If Coral's intentions were pure, why the need for such clandestine tactics? Why was there no attempt at transparency or dialogue? Coral and her son Lewis hadn't contacted us beforehand. They made no attempt at reasonableness. They gave no hint of saying to our daughter, "Lizzie, you may want to live with us, and when you're 18, that's your right. But I can't put your parents through the anguish of just driving off with you. That's cold and cruel. I won't do that, Lizzie." What mother would put another mother through that? No, we must speak to your parents. There was no such conversation or approach. You've got to ask yourself why. We certainly have. The lack of consideration for Lizzie's family feelings is not just alarming, it's downright suspicious. How did we end up in a situation where our daughter, our only child, was taken away in a covert operation without the orchestrator even having the decency to address anything with us? What could justify such a drastic and secretive act? What was so unbearable or horrific about Lizzie's life that she had to be taken the day after her 18th birthday, without so much as a change of clothes, her favourite teddy, or even a toothbrush? The planning, the plotting, the secrecy. Why? If home life for Lizzie was truly dire, why did Coral wait until the day after Lizzie's 18th birthday? Why not involve authorities or seek help openly? Was Coral's move ever really about Lizzie's welfare, or is there something else at play? In this episode, I'll give a potted summary of the run-up to that heartbreaking day. A glimpse of normality, a window on family life and love. Let's start with Lizzie. I've already mentioned that we adopted her when she was 5.5 months old, still a baby, drinking formula milk from bottles without even her first tooth. We fell in love with her from the first time we saw her at the foster carer's house. Lizzie had been asleep in a car seat when we arrived. I remember gazing at this chubby thing, wondering what my heart made of the idea that she was our soon-to-be daughter. As I gazed, baby Lizzie opened her eyes. It was so sudden, and her eyes were so wide, innocent and beautiful that I was instantly transfixed. In that magical moment, I transitioned from a childless man to a daddy. My priorities and outlook completely reconfigured in that one instant as this baby locked me in her piercing gaze. I describe it this way because I need to make it clear that I am Lizzie's dad. I am not her stepdad, adopted dad, adoptive dad, foster dad, carer dad, or any other prefix that insensitive institutions might choose to insert before my title in an attempt to dismiss my significance in her life and her significance in mine. I am Lizzie's dad. Jane is Lizzie's mum. and it makes not a jot of difference to either of us that Lizzie is not biologically ours. That means nothing. She is in every respect our daughter. For 17.5 years, we did not just care for her as though we had some tedious obligation to fulfill. We raised her. We parented her. We loved her as though she was our very own, because she was our very own. Lizzie knew that she was adopted. It was never a secret. It was part of her identity, part of her life story. That didn't stop her being our daughter. It didn't mean we were any less her parents. On the evening of the day that Lizzie was taken, just one day after she turned 18, Jane and I were shell-shocked and traumatised. Word spread, and a friend from church came round and listened as we tried to fathom what on earth had just happened. But there was no making sense of it. We weren't at that stage using the word grooming, but we soon would be, as we realised the true nature of events. It's not that Lizzie had left. She had been taken. Lizzie was such a playful child. Being an only child, she typically had to make do with me as her playmate. We made up countless games. There was a lot of running, hiding, silliness, and laughter. I could name each and every one of her doll's house characters, for between us, we'd given them each a personality and quirky traits, bringing them to life. Even approaching 18, Lizzie was still only a child, for that was her nature and her diagnosis. The rule of thumb with an individual with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, FASD, is to assume that they are operating at a level of around half their chronological age. And generally speaking, that's where Lizzie was. She and I would often have races around the village or across the school field. Hide and seek remained a favourite pastime. Lizzie would lurk mischievously, ready to pounce from behind furniture, while I would sneak up on her in playful surprise. Silly games, more suited to a younger child, were just perfect for her. One game that became a ritual involved Lizzie hiding when I returned home from my weekly Friday shopping trip. The groceries would sit temporarily defrosting in the kitchen, as I would embark on a mock search for her, knowing full well she was wedged under the dining table, a triumphant grin plastered on her face. Inevitably, she would require my assistance to emerge, because she had forgotten that she was 17 and not 7. The authenticity of what I'm saying is demonstrated by the following entry in my personal journal, made on the 18th of July, just 2 days before Lizzie's 18th birthday. 18th of July 2023. 2 more big sleeps until our daughter turns 18. The passing of time is most starkly seen in the growing of children into young adults. The last play with the doll. The last game of Tig. The final dramatic silliness with the cast of the Doll's House. One by one, things that seemed everyday and permanent are relegated to history and simply not repeated, slowly forgotten. I want to write a list of all the daft games we've made up, then sit and talk about them in a recorded session. I'm emotionally moved at the realization that Lizzie's childhood is drawing to an end. Our baby will technically be an adult. Thank you for the years of laughter and silliness child Lizzie, bringer of joy. July 20th, 2023. The dawn of Lizzie's 18th birthday brought with it a bright and early start. I loved all my daddy-daughter days and treasured them in my heart. Our trip to Lightwater Valley Theme Park, when we had raced around, going on as many rides as possible. Our visit to Pleasure Island Theme Park in Cleethorpes, where I was taken unwell on the spinning shell rides, a story Lizzie loved to recount. And our epic adventure at Alton Towers, where Lizzie went through the entire haunted house ride with her hands over her eyes. Our bond was built on countless moments of joy and playfulness, of running, hiding, chatting, laughing and sharing. This day was extra special though, for our little girl was 18. This time, however, we weren't going to a theme park. We were going to do something much more mature and cultured. With Jane tied up with work commitments, I took it upon myself to ensure that Lizzie's milestone birthday was unforgettable. It required a bit of Sergeant Major-like motivation to kick-start the day, but we were determined to pack as much fun as possible into the occasion. We all shared breakfast together, with Lizzie sat beneath the Happy 18th Birthday banner. She opened some cards and a few of her gifts, but there wasn't enough time to get through them all. Nonetheless, the number of cards she had received and the messages of affection within them were testament to how much everyone loved Lizzie. And that's the thing. For all of her difficulties, nobody had a bad word to say about Lizzie because she was so delightfully unique. Jane and I knew of her struggles and frustrations, and these would occasionally present themselves in challenging ways. But when we said we loved her totally and were so proud of her, we meant it. She was a credit to us, not because of any achievements, but because of her nature, her outlook, and her endearing idiosyncrasies that made her so wonderfully Lizzie. One gift that Lizzie did open was from Jane and I, a beautiful photo book containing an array of images of Lizzie from each year of her life, happy days out, treats, family silliness and memorable occasions. The most difficult part of creating that book for her had been choosing the right pictures from the hundreds we had of her. The opening caption at the start of the book read, "This photo book is filled with pictures of your wonderful personality, but starts with the first one ever taken of you. Enjoy looking through and remember, we love you so much." Jane, wisely, made sure that Lizzie had appropriate shoes, clothes and coat for a day of fun. And by 9:30 a.m. we were out of the door and on our way to York. A day in York had been Lizzie's own choice. We had considered various options in the weeks leading up to her birthday, including permutations of venues, friends and family. In the end, Lizzie herself had opted for a day out with her daddy in York. She had two requests. The day had to be fun, and it had to include ice cream. Both were promises I gladly made. First of all, it involved a car journey accompanied by singing. Lizzie had brought her MP3 player, and she was appointed as DJ. With player plugged into speaker, Lizzie picked her usual favourites, and we sang together to her soundtrack with gusto. Our mood wasn't dented by the slow traffic because, frankly, it simply meant she could play more of her songs. We laughed as we passed a fish and chip shop called Frying Nemo. Lizzie understood the pun, wasn't sure if she was amused or horrified, and then returned to singing. Upon reaching York, we headed for a two-storey car park. It was expected to be a sunny and warm day, so my inclination was to park on the lower level so that the car would be in the shade. No, said Lizzie. She wanted me to park on the top level so that the car could enjoy the sunshine too. So that's what we did, because she was queen of the day. I was wishing we'd arrived 10 minutes or so earlier, because we were wanting to go on a River Ouse boat cruise and we were cutting it fine. We headed for the landing jetty in the hope that we might catch the 11:30 departure. Approaching it, I could see the boat was still there, so I ran for it, hoping to be able to get on and pay for our tickets, by which time Lizzie would have caught up at her typically sedate pace. As it happens, as I ran towards the river cruise boat, the engines started and it glided away. I waited for Lizzie. She ambled along with a convincing look of disapproval, arms folded. "Ditcher," she accused playfully. "I wasn't quick enough to get on," I replied, out of breath. Her feigned outrage dissolved into laughter at the thought of me sailing away without her. Missing the boat turned out to be a serendipitous delay, for it gave us the chance to have an ice cream. I knew just the place we were heading for. I had done my research. So I strode off along cobbled streets and narrow alleyways, Lizzie struggling to keep up. The alleyway emerged at a small side street, and the luxury ice cream shop. Lizzie's eyes opened wide with delight. Sat outside the shop on little aluminium chairs, Lizzie and I enjoyed our ice creams in the warm July sunshine. She got ice cream on her nose. We chatted freely and comfortably until a pigeon wandered by Lizzie's feet and made her shriek with terror. After the ice creams, we headed back to the river where the boat was waiting, joined the queue, purchased tickets, headed for the bar below deck, and bought a small tube of Pringles. Lizzie tried to open it, couldn't, and passed it to me. I opened it and took a crisp. "What are you doing?" Lizzie asked curtly. "It's my birthday, not yours." But she let me eat the one in my hand because she was feeling benevolent towards her dad. We settled back as the boat set off, listening to the narrative about the river and various points of interest. Lizzie soon got bored of that, so we had an arm wrestle. She did show more interest in the graffiti under some of the bridges, especially the rude stuff. After the boat trip, we headed to a nearby Starbucks. Lizzie had seen pictures of iced chocolate frappuccinos in the window, and that's what she wanted for lunch. A sense of paternal instinct, my inner responsible adult, advised me that ice cream, Pringles, and chocolate frappuccinos did not constitute a nutritionally balanced diet, so we each had a ham sandwich as well. By the time we had finished our frappuccinos, Lizzie was starting to ask about returning home in order to have her routine of watching YouTube music videos. But there was one more thing to do on my mental list to mark the day: a walk along the city walls, which we did on our way back to the car. Our journey home was again characterised by songs and laughter. A text came through from my dad, which Lizzie was able to access on the car system. "Please congratulate Lizzie on her 18th birthday for me. Thanks, Dad." Lizzie replied there and then. "Hi, Grandad. Thank you and thanks for the money. Love you. Kiss, kiss, kiss." We had a delightful daddy-daughter day, and it was a pleasure to share such a precious occasion with her. I wish I could just bottle it. Back home, once Lizzie had gone through her routine music clip viewing, we asked her if she wanted to go out for dinner in the evening, but she said she was done, and could we just have fish and chips at home instead. So that is what we did. closing her 18th birthday celebrations in a simple yet perfect manner. As she said goodnight to us, her kiss and hug to each of us felt like a farewell, as if she were saying goodbye to the parents she loved. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of When Safeguarding Fails, the Lizzie Gladwell Crisis. If you found it moving or helpful, or if you think our story could help others, please like, share, or simply tell others about it. Thank you again, and join me for the next episode.